Kia ora, welcome to Data Science Auckland 2020. This year's event is an online series of talks featuring women in New Zealand sharing their stories about their work in the field of data science. WIDS Auckland is an independent event organised to coincide with the annual Global Women in Data Science Conference. I'm Kate Kolich, WIDS Ambassador, and we're delighted to be sharing these talks. Today's talk is from Ngapera Riley, who is the Chief Executive Officer of FigureNZ. Ngapera believes everyone should have access to good information and that knowing how to find and use data is vital to solving our country's biggest problems. In this talk, she shares an overview about the work that FigureNZ does to make data accessible to New Zealanders.
Tēnā rā koutou katoa, ko ai au no te aroa ahau I whānau mai au I Rotorua. Tēnā rā koutou katoa. My name's Ngapera Riley. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of FigureNZ, and I'm delighted to talk to you all today and share a little bit about what we do at FigureNZ. Now, first of all, from a woman in data science perspective, our organisation, we're a tech company and we build technology that helps bring together all of New Zealand's public data sources, aggregate data, and we turn it into pictures and charts and we make it free for everybody to access. And our organisation has been around for 8 years, and it was founded by the very lovely Lillian Grace, who had this incredible idea when she was researching really topical things for Aotearoa. One of the things she noticed was that in order to find New Zealand's data, when trying to look at topical situations like suicide and other things that are really important issues to solve, that data was really hard to find. And unless you knew where to find it, unless you knew how to read the big spreadsheets of numbers, that data could be quite confusing for everyday people to find. And so she founded FigureNZ on this idea that with data being the most valuable asset, one of the most valuable assets out in the world at the moment, if only people who are data analysts and educated in data could actually unlock the power of data, that was leaving out a big chunk of our society who couldn't access really important information. Now at FigureNZ, we believe that data holds really incredible stories and very powerful information about Aotearoa. So we've made it our mission to open that data up, make it really easy to find and help people use it. And so, yeah, that brings me to a little bit about why FigureNZ exists. So just quickly, it is really our mission to get the people of Aotearoa in New Zealand using data to thrive. And we have a big vision that if we can help people of New Zealand to use data to understand the things they care about, then they can make really a lot better decisions. And we want New Zealand to be a place where everybody can participate in decision making. And we think that data is something that's really valuable, that underpins absolutely everything that an advanced society should care about. Things like education, things like business, things like poverty, the environment, just about anything that you think about that is important to people will have some data around that issue that shows where we are at and what is the actual problem. If we think about, for example, smoking and how we reduce smoking, one thing that we would like to know, I guess, when you're first looking at an issue is how many people even smoke, and are they male, are they female, are they Māori? What does that look like? So whilst data isn't perfect, if we believe that if people understand a little bit about data, then they're much better able to participate in the conversation around how that happens. So we also fundamentally believe in at FigureNZ that, you know, data holds many valuable stories and everybody can benefit from using it. But what we do know that most people don't use data, and a lot of New Zealand's data isn't used very well. So we've tried to build a website. We make it's figure.nz for those of you who haven't used it. And we are just all about opening New Zealand's data up, making it easier to use, And we put it into charts because we want people to make connections and be able to see the data in everyday terms. So why did we start this, or why did Lillian start this in the first place? As I mentioned before, when you're looking at any kind of issue in Aotearoa, first of all, the first thing you go to is you want to find information or data about that particular thing. What she realised is that a lot of New Zealand's really important data was hiding in websites and hiding in Excel spreadsheets. Some of them were PDFs, some of them are just, there's no one standardised way of that data is shared in Aotearoa. So she thought, well, why can't we build technology that pulls together all of the sources, puts it into one source, and then all of a sudden makes it into charts. So that's what we've done at FigureNZ. It's pretty exciting, it's very geeky, and I won't go into the details because we've spent 8 years developing a world first system, but I would really just like to go to our site, which I'll go there in a little bit. So figure.nz, it is a free website for everybody to use. We've got over, I think, 48,000 charts now and data sets, and covers just about every range of topics about Aotearoa. These include people, health, education, the economy, crime, social welfare, technology, and we make it easy for people to find and use. I think one way to make this easier is actually if I just go to the website now and show you a little bit about what that website looks like. So let me just open up this. FigureNZ. If we open up the FigureNZ website, and I hope that you can see this, you can see that there is just information about a lot, but if I typed in something like youth crime, let's do that. If I typed in something like that, you can see that without knowing where the information comes from or who collects it or anything like that, I just typed in youth crime and it's pulled up, there's probably 21 charts here about children and young people charged in court, court proceedings, anything that is collected about that comes up. Now I like this chart here, and I want to show you this is because if you click on any of the charts that you see, all of this data is kind of interactive. So I can see in 2019 that 1,467 young people were charged in court in New Zealand. And excuse me, if I did like that chart, what we do here is we've got a download button so that anybody who's wanting to use that data in their chart can easily just download it, and you can either click the image if you want the chart into your presentation or your report, or you can actually download the original data file. What's also cool about this, and so you can see that this chart reads total children and young people charged in court. Everybody can see that it's come from Statistics New Zealand. And if you want to know more about the data or metadata, we've included that in every single chart on FigureNZ. It goes into the definitions, how it was calculated, links back to the original sources, and it's just a really easy way to find out the information. What our website also does is it will pick up related content. So anything with justice, youth, incidents, crime or court will come up as this set of information down here. So as you can see, it's just a really interesting way to look at data, particularly if for those who aren't data specialists, like anybody here is school students or researchers, anybody could really use this information. Now, when we talk about data as a language that holds our stories, what I mean by that is a lot of people tend to think of data just as numbers and spreadsheets. And what we want to really make clear for FigureNZ is that data is, you know, there's people and stories and communities and lives behind all of this public information, which is why we want to treat it with such care. So you can see here, if I show this chart to just about anybody and I say, what is interesting about this data? Most people will see that after 2017, the total children and young people charged in court drops off pretty dramatically. So you might want to say, well, what's happened there? Is there less crime being committed by young people? What has happened in that data to bring these numbers down quite significantly? And of course, in this case, it will be that there was a policy change that made it harder for young people and children to be actually charged in court. And so the court had made different decisions. But again, I just wanted to show that because I think it's a really interesting view. Another one of my favorite charts, that I wanted to share was the most common languages spoken in New Zealand other than English. Of course, English is the most commonly spoken language in Aotearoa, which is fantastic. But this chart shows that Te Reo Māori, by a long shot, is the second most common language spoken in Aotearoa, which to me was really awesome, and I got really excited seeing this chart. And that was before I saw that only 4% of people speak Te Reo Māori in New Zealand. But it was really interesting. So without knowing anything about languages, I can quickly go into FigureNZ. I can see that Te Reo Māori is the second most spoken language. Samoan is after that. Mandarin, Hindi, and French are the top 5 languages after English that are spoken in Aotearoa. And just one more chart, because, you know, I love to geek out about data. But this chart was really interesting to me because it shows the tourism expenditure in New Zealand by type of tourist, and it's like a time series chart from 1999 to 2019. So that's always very interesting when you can see over time. And so we can see over time that tourists have spent lots and lots of money, and that spend is increasing in New Zealand, which is amazing. One thing that I really thought was interesting is that $17 billion per year is spent by international tourists, which is quite incredible, but also quite sad given that international tourism has stopped. So that tells me there's a lot of money that's not going to be coming into New Zealand. But what was really surprising to me is that actually domestic tourism spent more than international tourism. So there's 23 billion as opposed to 17 that is spent by domestic tourists. So I thought that was really interesting. But I digress. That's just some of the way that we get excited about data, because you can type in absolutely anything in, let's just have a look at babies born, for example. Type in babies, we've got babies, we've got all kinds of information relating to babies here. And here's an interesting chart, Māori babies born in New Zealand. I guess that's interesting for me because I'm Māori, and we can see that in 2019, 16,788 Māori babies were born in New Zealand, but also that there was a big bit of a rise here, but also it's quite stable. There's not a massive increase or decrease in the number of babies being born. Anyway, I digress, and we'll go back to our presentation. One moment. And hopefully that makes it easier for you guys to see. So that's FigureNZ. We're really passionate about data, and we're really passionate about getting people to use the data. So this year, we've after 8 years of building this tool and bringing together 185 sources of data, so that's from all of the agencies that collect New Zealand's information, we are now, and because all of the data is standardized in the back end of our tool called Grace, we can now start building really cool tools with the data. But one thing that's of real huge importance to us at FigureNZ is, okay, data is there, and now we've got the data searchable. How do we actually make it usable for people? How can people actually use this to make better decisions, to do better things for New Zealand? So this is where our COVID impact tool, which I'll click to here, was developed. My very clever team put this together. And this is a job impact tool, and it helps. And we like to put, instead of just having a tool that reaches data, we like to help people ask the questions. So these tools might help us answer, Which jobs have the highest number over 65s, whose jobs require close proximity and face-to-face work? And of course, this was at a time where over 65s were at highest risk of COVID, and people were very rightly concerned about their well-being. It might be, we can answer things like which job had the most workers doing at-risk work for lowest pay, and which areas of New Zealand might have higher proportions of people working in jobs that may be impacted. So we've just gone through a whole lot of workplace contexts, and we put this data out for free for everybody to use. And here's just a part of the tools that shows, you know, you can pull by region, you can pull by sex, by ethnicity, and have a look at the different ways that data, you know, that COVID might be impacting our jobs. Sorry about that. All right. So moving right along, another tool that we've recently launched, which we're quite proud about, is called Learn with FigureNZ. And this is because we have realised that many people don't know how to use data in New Zealand. Oh, I'm so sorry about that. The dog is barking. So we wanted to produce a tool that was free for people to use and that helps people to learn how to use data one step at a time. So these are very basic tools: how to ask questions about data, how to read a chart, basics of reading a chart, and different ways that data is measured. We've got very basic concepts of data, and we've also got market validation guides for businesses and things like that. So these are all free for the public to use. And they're all just tools that we make available for free. And I'd like to give a huge shout out to Internet NZ, who have sponsored and who are helping us make sure all of these data resources are free for everybody to access and use. So thank you, Internet NZ. We are very grateful. Oh, sorry. Hello. Have I stopped there, or is... Sorry, I think I just might have pushed a button there, but that's okay. Try and get this out of here. Okay, so this is business figures, and this is the tool we developed a few years ago. It's probably one of our most popular data tools. And that is if you are, say, I'll just do it here. If you are a painting contractor and you live in Nelson, I'm just typing that live here. Don't know why Nelson Airport's come up, but if you live in Nelson, it is going to pull all of the publicly available data that relates to your industry and your trade and to that territory. So it might show you how many other painting businesses are in that region. Here we go. So you can see here, just clicking on that chart, there's 5,000 other painting and decorating services that you might compete with, but it will pull information about that industry by region. So let me just go here. If I was in Nelson, I can see that there are 45 other painting and decorating businesses in that region, which might be very helpful if you're trying to decide whether or not you should start a business or, you know, just exactly how much competition is out there. So that's business figures. Very quickly, I'm very excited about this one. This tool is called Be Seasonable, and this is developed by a team of people at Inspiral Dev Academy. And it is all about pulling data together to help people, this is also a free tool, to see what food is in season, what the prices are, and if the food is actually ethical. So here we go, here's apples. Let's click on apples. And it will go in to show apples. Okay, you can see that the average monthly price in May is around $2. You will see where the regions the apples are growing, and it will give you, also show some data about the product that you're wanting to buy. So again, it's just a fun way that you can use public data to make better decisions. And that's got data about all fruit and vegetables in New Zealand. So you can see if your avocados are local or whether they're imported, things like that. Okay, have I missed anything out? Places, I did want to show one other tool that we developed. And this is a tool that I think has lots of potential. So we actually developed this for the 2019 local elections. And some of the data is old because we used it prior to the census data being published and released. But basically it's a local election tool, and it's got facts and figures from all of the local areas so that you can go in and find, let's say we lived in Hamilton. So it goes, I can click on Hamilton and it will have data available in Excel or CSV file about just about everything. We've broken it down into topics. We can see demographics here. And it will tell you that in 2013, 141,000 residents lived in the Hamilton district area, and it's got projected population growth, but I can also go in and see data about lots of different things: immunisation, income, household health, work, work safety. So basically any public information we can find about Hamilton has been pulled into this tool. And it was a really great tool for people who were actually standing for elections. They could fact check, but also for people to understand their own election area as well. It's also got a council finances section. Basically, it's just sharing information so that people can fact check and make sure that the people who they're voting for in the local elections are aware of some of the issues and know where to get some basic facts. So I think that's a really powerful tool. And one day I have a dream that we will turn that into a place that has lots of interactive charts and pictures, and really be a place that people can go and find really interesting data about their communities. So that is just some of the tools that we have developed at FigureNZ, which is not bad considering we're a very tiny charity and there's only less than 10 of us in our organisation. So yay, FigureNZ. So you might ask, well, why use FigureNZ data? And how can I use this? A lot of people use our data. So we have probably around 2,000 people use our data, come to our website daily, which is amazing given we have no budget. We have a lot of people, so everyone from students, teachers love our websites, businesses love our websites, charities who may be applying for funding and want to know data about their specific topic. We even have a lot of people in government and local government that come to our site and use our data just because it's just a fast, easy way to find information about topics that people care about. So yeah, we really take a lot of care to publish and process as much data as we can do to make it available for everybody. So why use our data? Primarily, it's free to take and it's easy to use. We've built it so that you can download it. It's easy to find. Hopefully, it's easy to understand. But most importantly, it's credible data. Now, while data isn't necessarily perfect all of the time, it's important to check sources of data when you're looking through these things and make sure it's credible. Who's collected the data? How have they collected the data? And that's why for us, including the metadata along with each chart and all the original sources is really, really beneficial. I don't want to talk too much longer, but I did want to share some of my personal aspirations for data use in Aotearoa. First one being, if I was to really be clear, I would really love more support from agencies like StatsNZ and MB and others, because I think that our work is really important to help empower a lot of different businesses and a lot of different people. And so my aspirations is that, people can easily find the data when they need it. Our site is a really good start to that, but we could always do with more resources so we can process and publish more data and build better tools. I really would like people of New Zealand to know how to use data better and seek it out to make decisions. One of Lillian's, one of the many things she taught me was that, quite a lot of time, people spend a lot of time arguing about different issues and topics. And one thing that data does is it helps it helps you stand outside of your own individual vantage point, and it helps you see things differently. You know, you might be arguing about whether there's too many people on a benefit in New Zealand and that's a big cost to New Zealand. Well, instead of arguing about what is and what isn't, you can easily see exactly how many people are on a benefit and how much that is costing. And, you know, once you put the data in the middle, you can actually just stop arguing about what is and get on to solving the problem or whatever that problem might be. And I think that that's the really beauty of data. I really hope that data is used for good, and that, you know, and data can be used to help our country thrive. We're in a really interesting time in the world where data is really valuable, but also, you know, it's a money game. People are commercializing data. That is how people are making their money. And that is why we actually exist, because we could see that there was going to be a real uneven balance in people accessing data, because it would be people who had a lot of money, who could afford data analysts, and who, you know, who have a lot of resources could use data, and they do use data. Meanwhile, everybody else who can't use data, or maybe don't have those tools, might miss out. So I just hope that in the future, data use in Aotearoa is ethical, that it is used for good things. And that is why we spend so much of our time and our waking hours trying to open it up for people. My hope is that important issues for our country are solved using data. There's a lot of pressing things here. We've got poverty, we've got how do we look after our environment, you know, how do we grow businesses, how do we navigate through COVID? And it's my deep belief that data can help us solve some of those issues. We have real issues in New Zealand around Māori and Pacific and any kind of ethnic data being collected meaningfully. And so I'd like to see better data about Māori and Pacific personally. And that's because we get a lot of requests for this kind of information, and the data that there's a lot of gaps in the data that exists. So I would love to see us get better at the way that we collect Māori and Pacific data. You know, I hope that we can use data to invest in our country, that government and taxpayers' money is spent wisely, and that we get the most bang for our buck, but also that people can help use data to make better choices for themselves and for others. So that's a pretty big aspiration list, but I did think that it was important to share that. And lastly, I think I just wanted to leave a few of my top tips for data. I know that probably many people who are watching this are maybe data experts already. And, you know, our kaupapa is data for non-experts, and how we can even the playing field. But if you are an everyday person that is not a data expert, my top tips for data is to, first of all, be curious. You know, ask questions, find out. When you see data in the news, go deeper. Where does that data come from? What are they trying to get there? You know, who wrote it? How was that data collected? So ask questions of the data. If possible, you use the most recent data available, and just look into it. Where did that data come from? How was it? Why are they using it in this way? Also, I think it's the great kind of question of our time, but be ethical. I would really love everybody. I think if everybody took an ethical approach to using data, we would be in a much better position than we are now. We often seen data used in the past. If you think of the 90s, you think of somebody standing trying to sell you something, and they've got the data as to why that you should invest in this thing. That's really great. If the data is correct, but you know, let's use data to be ethical and not just sell things. Let's really use data in clever ways. I'd like to see more people crediting data sources, especially when we see a lot of data used online, and we see a lot of issues now. Now information is just able to be shared so widely. So I think people need to ask those questions. Where did this data come from, and is it a credible source? I encourage people to read the metadata if it exists, to understand why those numbers do exist, because that holds a lot of power in it. And I think the last thing is having that I've really learned just over the last year or so is that having data is great and knowing and having good data is great, but having data alone is not as powerful as building a story around the data. And this is because, data is just, data can tell us a lot, but we have to remember that there's humans and lives and stories behind this data. So if we're able to build a really clear story around the data, then the data becomes more meaningful and you're able to connect people into the data better. So those will just be my top few tips. And I would like to end with saying that if anybody does have any questions about New Zealand's public data, sign up to learn or just come to us on our website. We have a data team that field a lot of questions from people about different things. If you're having trouble finding, I don't know, data about milk or exports or whatever, and it's hard for you to find, please get in touch with us, because we like to know what people are searching for, what people's challenges are with data, and then we like to take that and use it and build it into our technology and our websites. So basically everybody can access it. So that's a little bit about FigureNZ. That is our taonga to you. That is our gift from FigureNZ to the people of Aotearoa. We just hope people use the data. We want people to have questions about it. And, we really believe that working together, and data is only one tool. There's a whole lot of other tools that people can use, but we believe data is a pretty important tool, and that hopefully if we can all use it in the right kind of ways, then we can together carve out a nice, thriving future for our country. Because at the end of the day, that's what it is all about. We want a country that thrives with happy people in a clean environment, and that people can really just live their best lives. So we hope that data becomes an important part of your life. And nō reira, tēnā rā koutou katoa.